Hi all, I have an absolutely amazing game to show you of Leela against Stockfish Dev from last month in a bonus game that was played at TSEC. Let's have a look at this. So Stockfish was on 43 cores. E4 from Leela, the set opening book, just these moves, these 4 ply. So pretty standard. End of book. Leela plays knight c3, knight f6. Open Sicilian. We go into the Najdorf. Bishop d3. Quite unusual bishop d3, but it has been played before at high levels. G6, h3, bishop g7, bishop e3, both sides castle. And now e6, b5 has been seen before in a high level master game, with black winning in Kamporuk against Bogner in Dresden 2008. But e6 here from Stockfish. Queen d2, setting up a battery to try and maybe exchange off bishops. At some point, b6, f4, aiming for f5, bishop b7, f5, and Stockfish voluntarily opens up the g-file here with g takes. That g-file, could that be useful? Bishop h6, f takes e4. We have now queen g5. Now black has to be very careful, not knight e8, because if queen takes d8 here, but Stockfish has calculated knight h5 here to defend the g7 issue. Queen takes h5, bishop takes d4 check, king h1, and now Stockfish gives up the bishop voluntarily. Bishop takes c3. You might wonder e takes d3. That fails to check actually. Queen takes d4 check and queen takes d3. This position is just winning for white, it seems, or much better. If the rook moves, then there's rook takes f7, hitting b7 and h7. So for example, rook g6 we just take there, and bishop takes g2, we just play this, and then rook f8 check, winning the queen. So these lines are all very good. So bishop takes c3. Again, it seems as though in theory, Stockfish has taken some risks, but to actually punish this in practice is a different story. White is threatening now queen g4 and queen g7 with the absence of that bishop, for example. Let's put it on the board. So that is the threat, and it's parried with f5. We have bishop c4 now, not taking the rook. Taking the rook is interesting, but it's just a small advantage perhaps for for white only, because look at black's pawns, they're quite impressive. So Leela actually refuses to win the exchange here. Bishop c4 instead. There's another plan, more ambitious perhaps, with bishop c4, just to tease d5, which blocks in this bishop. And now the bishop goes here, which has greater flexibility than on b3. The problem with putting the bishop on b3 concretely, as an example, say this, knight d7, trying to open up the g-file with g6 here, there's runs into rook f5, and there's no bishop g4 to try and kick that rook away. Now in the game continuation, the bishop is more useful if there is a need for bishop g4. We have rook f7, which might actually be already a key mistake, just that move 19, a key mistake here from Stockfish. It seems as though knight d7 might be the best defensive try. For example, if g4, f4, and white might have to just take the exchange here, like this, but it is a small edge for white. If white doesn't take the exchange here and plays g5 here instead, then it could run into trouble actually with f3 in this particular scenario. For example, g6, rook f5 here, and this position is actually leading for an advantage for black. It seems there's no problems for black there. So it seems as though knight d7 might have been a key defensive resource, but in the game we have rook f7, slightly more awkward. And we have now g4 here, and it's under very different circumstances. f4 was played. If f takes actually, then just queen takes f7 check. Thanks very much. So f4. On knight d7 here, again, this is very good. After g takes, e takes check, and then queen takes f7. So f4. We have now g5. Now here we see the value of the bishop actually. If rook f5 here, then there's bishop g4 kicking that. And if, yeah, this is just troublesome. After knight d7, for example, just taken in g6, that's crashing through. For example, like this, it's just crashing through. Yep. So this is a very important resource here, bishop g4. We have now, and if rook e5, we can just take on f4. So we have actually, if f3 in this position instead, then g6 here is just in time hitting that rook, which also is why that rook f7 seems to be a little bit inaccurate. If takes, then we just take there and crashing through. So in the game we have queen e7, and now g6, rook f5, hitting the queen. G takes h7 check, king h8. On king takes h7, there's bishop g5 check, protecting the queen, hitting the opponent's queen. And taking here, the bishop's actually doing a great job protecting the queen in this line. So that's an advantage for white. So the bishop on e2, very important for bishop g4s, for holding the queen. Important role compared to b3. So we have actually king h8, queen g4 threatens queen g8 checkmate. Queen takes h7 is played. If knight d7, rook g1 threatens mating with queen g8. If takes here, queen h4 threatens, let's see, this position to just double the rooks, which is menacing. This is actually just crushing this scenario. Check, check, and it ends up where black is in big trouble here. Black's just losing after bishop g6, queen h4 check. So yeah, these lines are just terrible after knight takes d7. Just to run that through again, rook g1 is just winning here. And just give an alternative in this. So black is just, because white's doubling and increasing the intensity, then it's winning. This line, you might think also king takes. There's queen d8 check here, mating like that. So anyway, queen takes h7 was played, not knight d7. We have queen h4, knight d7, rook g1, rook f7, and Stockfish realizes here it's totally busted. It just realizes that white can actually intensify the attack and there's no defense. So we have to now see, I'll demonstrate why concretely here. The game actually ended because of the adjudication rules. Rook g5 with the intention of doubling rooks is lethal. f3, rook ag1, doesn't matter about the bishop. F takes, for example. Rook g7 is crushing. For example, rook takes, bishop takes, g7, bishop e5 check. That wins the queen and the game, basically, after bishop d6 threatening mate there. This is just mating. And if we look at this again, if knight f8, then rook g8 check, takes bishop g7, double check, and mate. If f2, then the rook can go here, and the bishop's actually another useful purpose is to be able to take on f1. So here the bishop's a hero in this line as well. So this is just hopeless for black. This scenario is just crashing through again. For example, like that. Or let's have a look now at rook f7. And this line again with rook g7. So taking on e2, rook g7. Yeah, bishop e5 check. Yeah, we've seen this actually. Okay, so yeah, we'll go back to the final position. It seems as though Stockfish underestimated the power of the g-file attack. Bishop e2 is a really key move, though, to make sure the attack could work as well as it did. So a great game there from Leela. And Stockfish really doesn't lose too many games recently, as we've seen. So this is really quite a special trait. Overall, Stockfish did beat Leela, but there were quite a few draws. This was the only game in that bonus games which Leela did beat the Stockfish Dev on 43 cores. but that really is once in a blue moon event for Stockfish generally to lose at all recently. It's getting a kind of invincible reputation. However, is this starting to be looking like the end of the era for Stockfish and classical chess engines in general? Comments, questions, like, shares appreciated. Thanks so much.